3 people? Or am I going to have a whole lot? You just gave me a really big party. It made me feel delighted. I'm Pat Osborne. I'm one of the chairs of the Diversity and Inclusion and Belonging Committee. Not too many people want to belong to.
But some of us do.
Yes! Some of us definitely.
You might get some new members today.
And so we are delighted that you've come today. We have a very special speaker. Her name is Trisha Beissel. I always want to say Beissel like the
Unfortunately, we are not
your
related.
father
Yeah,
finally has me saying Beissel. And she has retired from Exxon. I told her she's in good company. We have a lot of Exxon, Shell, Philip, all those different.
Conoco.
Oh, yes. Now, we're going to be very polite.
Well, that was me. Sorry.
So, she's here today to just share information with you, and we're just delighted to have her. You're active in the human rights
Campaign.
yes,
My shirt.
yes.
It's the pretty little
I like
yellow
your
equal
shirt.
sign with the blue
Yes, it means
square around it.
friendly bird, like, right? I mean, it,
Well, I'll go
sort
with
of.
that, yeah.
Anyway, thank you. You didn't come to hear me.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I want to especially thank my dad and dad for. I don't know if you guys came for me or because they're just like the Kardashians around here. Yeah. To get in on their braces, so but I'll take it. Thank you. This is a great ego boost for me. It's been a minute since I've actually presented in front of a group. I've been retired for about 2 years now, so and I was very active in our LGBT group at ExxonMobil. It had about 1,000 members at the Houston campus, and I ran that, and that was probably the best part of my job that I did there. So it's always about the people and not too much about the work. So anyways, thanks for inviting me. I was thrilled to hear that Eagles Trace has this diversity group. As you can look around, you can probably tell you need a little diversity. So I'm glad you're thinking about it. That's always a start. That's a good place to start. So glad you get it, and I'm happy to be here for celebrating Pride in the month of June. So I just plan to speak to you about my experiences and the knowledge I have as a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and we can do some Q&A maybe after I speak. I did bring some notes because I have so much to share with you guys, and I didn't want to lose track, so I hope you don't mind that I will be reading from my notes here. So firstly, I just want to kind of level set on what it means to be LGBTQ+. What is that community? It can be very confusing. We in the community ourselves call it alphabet soup affectionately because it sounds just so crazy. But just to get all the uncomfortableness out of the way, we're going to start with what does LGBTQ+ mean. So there's the L and the G and the B. So lesbian, gay, and bisexual, and that relates to who you want to sleep with. That relates to your sexual orientation. Okay, so lesbians obviously are women loving women. Gays are men that love men. Bisexuals are people that love men or women. There's also a special credit here on here, pansexuals. You're gonna hear, that's what the plus means, right? There's a whole lot of terms nowadays. The new generation has really started to claim, for as much as people don't want to be labeled, I feel like we're labeled to the nth degree right now. But like, so pansexuals will be folks that involved with people of, they don't consider gender a binary. It's anybody along the spectrum. So that would be what pansexual relates to. The T is transgender. That actually has nothing to do with sexual orientation, but because we're all different, they lump us into this one big category. So transgendered folks are people that, it's how they present themselves, how they feel they are, how they see themselves. That is what a transgender person relates to. And then there's the Q and the plus. So Q represents queer. Interestingly enough, back in the day, queer was a very derogatory term. It was used very poorly. It's now been reclaimed by the newer generation. They actually really like that term. And I'm okay, use whatever terms you want to, that doesn't bother me. The plus relates to that we're all on a spectrum, and so it's any and everything all in between. So the plus just is to be kind of all encapsulating on that.
So what exactly does queer mean? Is that gay, or is it lesbian, or is it an all-inclusive term?
I would say it's an all-inclusive term. It's just an overarching kind of term. And again, it's very much to the individual. About, like, I identify as lesbian. Some people would like to say, even as a woman, they say they identify as queer, or they could say they identify as gay. It's because they're just overarching terms. So it's very individualistic.
Got it.
And it's whatever somebody chooses is how to identify themselves. It's kind of how they go. Any other questions related to that? Yes, sir.
The other day I saw an A, I think it stood for ace.
Asexual. So people that actually aren't interested in having sex. Can you believe that? I feel like you can be lesbian, I'm just saying. So, yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Isn't there an I somewhere too?
Yeah, reflects intersex. So
Yeah,
there
what
are
does that mean?
there are people that are born with both male and female organs, genitalia, like different things like that. And what the sad thing for that is, back in the day, it still happens some today, but what will happen is a doctor will decide based off of the size, like if you have enough to make a phallus or not, they'll make you a boy or they'll make you a girl. So a doctor will decide at your birth. And there's a movement now to allow people to just grow up with that going on and allow them to figure out who they are, identify who they are, and make whatever they, if they even need to do any corrections. Maybe there's none needed, right? I think a lot of that is based off of what we're comfortable with, right? Like we have to have a man, we have to have a woman, and this is just the way it is. In the world, in my view, these are all my views, y'all. So, in my view, the world is not that way. That everybody is just along a spectrum. So, nice, great questions, great start, guys. Thanks. All right. Let's see. Oh, we're already on page 2. This is fantastic. Moving right along. All right. So, why do we need pride in 2024? I'm like, oh, I so wish we didn't need to be talking about this still. I'm really tired of talking about my sexuality, and I just kind of really wish it wasn't a thing anymore. But there are people, there's a lot going on right now that is driving a very negative image of the LGBT plus community, and they're threatening our basic human rights again. So for my age, you guys are obviously older than me, but I'll talk a bit of kind of the things that I've lived through that has gotten me to where I am. I'm probably slightly activist. I hope that doesn't put you guys off. I have a lot to share, but just having gone through this cycle and feeling like I'm just back where we started is, I could just cry about that. It makes me so upset. It's very frustrating. And that might come out in my language, so I hope you'll give me a little grace with that. But I also hope it gives you an idea to help make some change with this. It's going to take all of us to make it a better place to be. So, all right. So for me, the most basic reason of why we need pride in 2024, because someone tonight believes they're better off dead than being LGBTQ. It's to let those in the community know that they can live their authentic selves. They are not less than, something to be ashamed of or to be dealt with. I don't want to make you gay. I just want to make sure that gay people can survive and they can thrive. That's what I'm looking for. That's to me why we need Pride in 2024. To be visibly queer is to choose your happiness over your safety.
Wow.
I will give you an example. When
Say
I
that
walk,
again, Trish.
Yes.
Say
to
that
be
again.
visibly queer is to choose your happiness over your safety.
Wow.
So the example for that I'll give you is in Houston. If I walk down the street holding my girlfriend's hand, am I okay? Am I not okay? I'm gonna assume my audience's demographics here, but there's probably not a thought you guys have. But when especially like, I'll give an example, a work example. When part of our pride group at work, we would talk to the company about, you can't just send people anywhere. You can't send LGBTQ people to Russia, okay? When we were doing business with Russia, okay, I know it's a little dated. But you have to be, I'm always constantly saying, women in this group are gonna understand that better than men, okay? That I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but a woman has to think about, if I'm gonna go outside, what time of day is it? Where am I gonna be? What's the environment like? Do I need to bring somebody else? Do I have something in my pocket just in case? There's all sorts of things you have to consider. And that's just as a woman. Add being LGBTQ on top of that, okay? So that's one thing I'm just trying to get across for you guys. I'm gonna throw a little bit of political stuff in here. There's a thing called the Equality Act. Basically what it's trying to do is amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You guys know about the Civil Rights Act of 1964? What a great audience this is, I love this. Okay? So you know what that's all about. So it's to add gender identity and sexual orientation and sex to the Civil Rights Act, to give protections for our community for housing, public accommodations, education, federally funded programs, credit, and jury service. So we still don't have that. It got close when Obama was in office, and it never got up for a vote to the Senate. I mean, you guys know some of this background, but it's still out there, and hopefully one day we'll actually get it so that I have the same protections that you guys have. Yes, sir?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Because I certainly remember that. I also remember the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. Is that still alive, or?
So the Equal Rights Amendment is related to women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually passed in Texas, you guys, back in 70, somebody knows, somebody must have worked on a campaign. But in 74-ish, I think, Texas actually, a lot of the states voted for it, but we didn't have enough, so it didn't pass. To this date, we still don't have the Equal Rights Amendment for women. I mean, okay, all right, let's just keep going. Thanks for that comment, though. All right, so for me growing up, my attraction to women felt very natural. I had my high school best friend, and sorry, Dad, and we were obviously very close, but it wasn't until her mother had confronted my bestie that said, "Don't you think you're just too close?" That's when I kind of was like, oh, people are gonna have a problem with this. So my question for you guys, assuming again, the demographics in here, is when did you guys decide to become straight? At what age did you sit to yourself and go, oh my God, I'm straight? Right? No, you don't have to, right. So since it wasn't my experience, what I'm going to assume is it wasn't something you considered. It just was. There was no one asking you about who you sleep with or how you sleep with them or why you sleep with them. And to be fair, it's to your advantage, it's your privilege that you have that I don't get to share. You're not having somebody questioning who you are, who you feel you are in your body and your soul. So, so I want to tell you a quick story. I have two daughters, and I have my eldest daughter, she was in middle school, and we were driving home and we stopped at a light, and she goes, Mama, I need to tell you something. And as parents, you probably are like, oh, same as me. I was like, oh my God, is she on drugs? Like what's going on here, right? And she goes, Mama, she goes, I like boys. So first of all, I was very relieved that it wasn't anything bad. And then secondly, of course, I told her, I said, you know what, babe? I just care that they love you for who you are and they allow you to reach your maximum, whatever that is. So I just thought it was really interesting that my eldest daughter felt like she had to come out straight to her lesbian parents. But the good news is the younger daughter, she hasn't declared yet, and so there's still hope. Hopefully you guys know it's a joke, because there's always a joke that the gays are trying to recruit, right? So we're not trying to recruit. You either know it or you don't know it, right? So, but I do like to tease her a little bit about, I still got a chance. Until you tell me I still got a chance. So I come out every day. I have to come out to my neighbors, my doctor, my kids' teachers when they're in school, my co-workers when I was working. My dad and Beth, they are tasked with that as well, to speak about their family. The issue with that is always analyzing how is that conversation going to go. I am sizing you up out of that time. Who am I talking to? Will they approve? I don't need anybody's approval, but it is about how are they going to react to you? What is that conversation? What is that going to be like? Like at work, I was potentially risking advancement to be open during my career. Discrimination wasn't written into law until 2020 to not discriminate against LGBTQ people. So maybe I was discriminated against, maybe I wasn't, I don't know. it wasn't blatant enough, I guess, to know. At a doctor's office, I might not get treated. There are states that are passing laws that allow doctors to opt out on treating LGBTQ people. And to me, I'm like, what happened to first do no harm? The Supreme Court just decided 2 days ago that they're gonna hear a case about healthcare for transgendered people. So be on the lookout for that, because that's either going to be revolutionary or catastrophic. That's life and death for trans folks getting healthcare. So here's a quote I wanted to share with you guys. Queer people don't grow up as ourselves. We grow up as a version of ourselves to sacrifice authenticity, to minimize humiliation and prejudice. The massive task of our adult lives is to unpick which parts of ourselves are truly us and which parts were created to protect us. So when I spoke a bit before about you guys coming out as straight, that's not something you guys went through. Your normal process was just that. Whereas when you're hiding part of who you are, when you're not authentic about who you are, it takes some time to figure out, well, who is that authentic person then? Because I've been masking it for so long, right? So it takes a while to pull off the layers of that and to figure that out. It's really all about getting comfortable enough within yourself that you're able to risk the effects of somebody knowing that you're LGBTQ. That's what that's about. So I have a friend who won't mind me saying that he didn't come out until he was in his 40s due to family pressures. And he talks about the loss he feels because he cared more about what his family thought of him than what was right for himself. And I think about all the lives that have lost like this and their potential that is also lost because of those prejudices. Because if you feel constrained, you're not going to bring everything that you can. You won't be as creative, you won't be as productive, right? So I myself came out during the devastating AIDS pandemic. And just a little side note here, since we just went through, well, I say through, we're in COVID, however you want to talk about it, right? We know about the COVID pandemic, so a little side note here, and I'm sorry, but I lived through this, and I will never not be angry about this. But it took Ronald Reagan 4 years to do something about AIDS. 4 years before he even mentioned it in a presidential press conference. And that was because Rock Hudson died, okay? I'm sorry, but the impact of what people can and can't do is huge. And we all know what happened through COVID. That was the AIDS pandemic. You guys were there as well. You lived through the AIDS stuff too, so you know what I'm talking about. We also had the miserable Don't Ask, Don't Tell that was supposed to be helpful, but thankfully have been repealed. My brother was also gay. You're welcome, Dad. He was too. My brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was 2 years older, so my dad was twice blessed with us. You're welcome. So it must be, maybe there was something in the water. One little story I like to tell is one day my brother was over at our house and my dad called and I was outside working in the garage and my brother was sewing with my wife at the time. I was like, oh, we were kind of all over the place, but okay. So we both came out in our 20s and it was then that we could accept ourselves. And like I said, going back to that quote, when you come out is when you decide for yourself that you're willing to take whatever's gonna happen to you and you just wanna be happy within yourself. So we are fortunate to have a very supportive family, but not everybody has that luxury. And that makes me very, very sad and another reason why people need to see Pride Month and see it reflected so they can feel it for themselves. I also created a family of my own with a woman. I told you I had 2 daughters, so I had them through artificial insemination. And they were born in the late 90s after a long process of science, money to fund all that because insurance didn't cover it at the time, and then court hearings. And that was to establish my relationships in this family unit to make sure, because I didn't birth them, to make sure the state of Texas understood that what our relationship was so I could establish my rights to my children. So that was fun. When we were in the courtroom, we were on the docket, family court. I don't know if y'all have been in family court, but basically a family judge is supposed to follow the law, but they can basically do what they want to because it's their court. Anyway, so we were in family court waiting to hear the judge, to see the judge, and our case came up, and the judge was like, let's move that lower in the docket. And I could see my lawyer just be like, like she was trying to be cool so that I wasn't not cool, but I was like, that didn't sound good. So basically what happened was, because this was 1996, basically what happened was is the judge wasn't comfortable, everybody in the courtroom hearing him rule on our case. So he wanted all the other cases to go through so that the court was clear, so then he could hear our case, and then he passed our case, so that was very good. So I basically established a relationship. If somebody were to get in a heterosexual marriage, if you were to get divorced, it's called a joint managing conservatorship. That's basically the same thing that I got as tying with my kids. So just a little information there. Anyways, so my kids grew up in just like any other family. They just had two moms. That was just their normal, and we were a little bit on the leading edge, however, because it was difficult for some to understand. My younger daughter was in elementary school, and you know, there's a lot of things in elementary school about family units and things like that, right? So I guess they were talking about that, and this one kid came up to my younger one, and they were like, who's your dad? And my kid said, I don't have a dad. Because for us, they have a sperm donor, they don't have a father, okay? Because there's not that rule. My dad was a very excellent father figure to my daughters. I'm just gonna mention that right now. So much so that they sent him a nice Father's Day card this last some days ago. So anyway, it does my heart very good that his support that he offered. But this kid was like, who's your dad? And my daughter's like, I don't have a dad. He's like, no, you have to have a dad. And my daughter's like, I know, I have two moms. So the kid went home, I guess talked to their parents, I guess, came back the next day, came up to my daughter and said, your dad died in the war. And my daughter was like, I mean, she knows her family unit. It didn't bother her, but obviously what was sad to me as a sign of the times is that there could be no other explanation in 1998. No, that would have been probably 2000, 2001. No other explanation except her dad died in the war. And I'm like, what war? But okay. And so it wasn't really until Obama signed marriage equality into law in 2015 that I felt like times were changing. There was a sense of security in the LGBTQ plus community. And honestly, it felt like it's the first time I had actually taken a deep breath since I had kids. There was just so much at stake always. And it just felt so glorious. The community was so happy. It was just progress. It was a very hard fought progress. And it was just such a glorious day when that all happened. I'm gonna counteract that by saying in November of 2016, I went back to holding my breath, because it feels that every day something can happen to my community, which then affects me personally. And it's exhausting, it's exhausting. I have a little bit more to share about that in a little bit. Okay, so why do we still need Pride in 2024? Because more people say they've seen a ghost than a transgender person.
Are you kidding?
I mean, y'all probably know a transgender person. You might not know you know a transgender person. I know you know an LGBTQ, a lesbian, gay, or bisexual person. I know it. There's no way you don't know someone. You just don't know you know. Okay? But we're out there. We are everywhere. We're like teachers and doctors and dentists and I don't know, all sorts of things. Do you know what I mean? So it's silly to think that you don't think you've met somebody, you know somebody, you just don't know that you have. So, but to think that you've seen a ghost more than you've seen a transgender person, I think that's crazy. Why do we need Pride in 2024? Because there are book bans. They're mostly based on race, LGBTQ, and sex, like sexually explicit, potentially. There were 4,000 books in this past school year that were banned. Here are 4 that I pulled out for you that were banned specifically in Texas. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay, obviously this one. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. We don't want anyone to know about that. No. And this one, Eleanor Roosevelt, Fighter for Justice, Her Impact on the Civil Rights Movement and the White House and the World, by Eileen Cooper. Yeah. There are websites that you can get all this information. I'm going to tell you some of this stuff.
Where were those banned?
Those specifically were banned in schools, in public libraries.
But more than one state or just
That's in the state, those 4 I mentioned were in the state of Texas.
really?
Yeah, the 4,000 is a nation number, but those 4 were in the state of Texas. Yeah. There's a lot going on that I bet you guys just don't know because it's not your life. And I appreciate that and I understand that, but for the rest of us, it sucks. So I'll get to a little bit more on that. So why do we need Pride in 2024? Because diversity groups like this, diversity, equity, inclusion groups like this, are now banned in higher education. They're now gone from University of Texas, University of Houston, even A&M had one, you guys, go Ags, come on. And now they're gone. Rice University has one because it's a private university and it's doing well and it's trying to do everything it can to take up slack and bridge any of those gaps. Why do we need Pride in 2024? Because of trans sports bans. I'm a former NCAA scholarship athlete, and this is the first time that I felt the government actually cared one bit about women's sports. Cared about women's sports.
Yeah.
I mean, Title IX was just passed in 1972, 50 years ago. And Title IX isn't being fairly applied to this day, okay? But they gotta make sure that the girls are protected, okay, in sports. But I want you guys to understand that the way they're applying these things, they have an official that can check somebody's genitalia to see what if they're transgender or not. That's, I mean, how else do you apply a rule like that? I think that's outrageous. That should not be allowed. I think that's crazy talk. And then the other thing is, if they cared about equity in sports, why are they not concerned about trans men in men's sports? You don't ever hear about that. Oh, they have to protect us women. Okay. All right. Where was I? Why do we still need Pride in 2024? Well, I invite you to read the comment section of any news story or any post about a Pride event, or even a women's sports event, honestly. Go read the comments, you guys. Why do we need Pride in 2024? Because in Texas and in the nation, there are an increasing amount of anti-LGBTQ bills every year. I mean, skyrocket. In Texas in 2023, there were 16 bills that passed one chamber, and then 5 that were signed into law. So there's a drag ban, where you can't do drag, a DEI ban, which we talked about, the diversity, inclusion, and inclusion people. There's the book ban we talked about. A youth gender affirmation care. That's where trans folks can't get health care. So I have a friend that actually fled Texas with her trans child for multiple reasons. One is she needed health care for her child. And the second is because a quote unquote whistleblower released her child's private medical records because they thought they were doing the right thing, because it's so awful to affirm how a person feels. I hope you guys understand that. I mean, I don't have a trans experience, so I don't know it exactly, but to look in a mirror and not feel equal to what your body presents as, I cannot imagine how hard that is. And their lives are so hard already, and all we're doing is making it harder and worse for them. And to me, it's a scapegoat. Again, these are my views, okay? But if I pay attention to all of this over here, nobody's gonna know what's going on over here, because by God, we gotta make sure these people are doing the right thing. What's right is keeping your child alive. Wouldn't you do anything to keep your child alive? If your child was trans and they said, I would rather die than live in this body, would you not do everything and anything possible to get them what they needed? Yeah, and we are making it harder and harder to do that. There's also a chaplain bill, it's the 5th one. Unlicensed religious chaplains are now free to work in the mental health roles in public schools. You're welcome. There are also rumored to be over 1,000 bills already lined up for when the Texas legislature starts in January of 2025. So buckle up, Buttercup. I was very active with HRC going up to Austin to try to talk to the folks up there to explain what it feels like to be in this community and ask for them to represent all of their constituents. And I mean, I guess we're a little bit better off. So what can you do to help? I've got a nice list for you guys. Okay. First of all, show your support. Wear a pin, a pride pin, a t-shirt, put a flag out. I will tell you that, like, especially like at work, or anywhere really, I'm gonna size you up as I walk up to you. And if you give me indications that you are friendly, it's a much nicer environment for me. It makes me feel much safer. And if you can do that at the out front by just being a genuine person, that would be very helpful. Spend your money on LGBTQ supportive companies. It's called the pink market, pink dollar. There's a lot of information out there that tells you what people's stances are. You guys might hate me, but I have not gone to Chick-fil-A since I don't know what year. And my daughter still wanted to go, and I said, well, you gotta pay for it. Because I will not spend my money there. Because they are anti-LGBT. I should say, the company isn't anti-LGBT, but the person that then reaps the rewards as the recipient of all those dollars is extremely anti-LGBTQ. So I ask for you to take a look at how you spend your money. Use inclusive language. So maybe instead of asking somebody about their wife or their husband, maybe ask if they have a spouse or a partner. Those are nice indications that you're aware that there could be a different situation. That would be very nice. Don't assume. Like, don't assume who's walking up to you. I used to love taking a ride home from the airport with the Uber driver, because there's this time when, because, you know, I'd said I had kids. Well, if you have kids, you have to be heterosexual. Okay, I'm just telling you, not. But that's the assumption. This guy dug a hole so deep, and I just said, keep going, keep going, keep going, and at the end, I was like, by the way. I gotta be honest, I do love that. It's like when the Pentecostals come up to my house to tell me about nice things and stuff. I'm like, well, you guys don't want me. They're like, oh, and I'm like, oh. So anyways, we have a good conversation about that. Don't be afraid to be wrong. It's so much about intent. Like, if you're trying to have a conversation with me about something LGBTQ related, if your intent is there, if you're being genuine, I'm all in with you. Even if you mess it up, I'm here to help you out. It is different though if I feel like somebody's fishing for information or that type of thing. So it is about being genuine, it is about your intent, but please don't be afraid. If that's where you are, that's where your emotions are, don't be afraid to engage in a conversation or have or talk about things like that. This is a big one, you guys. You ready? Okay. Please speak up. If you see something, please speak up. Because not speaking implies that you agree with it. My college roommate, I talked to her this morning about that I was coming here, and she told me that she had this just awful experience. She was at the tennis club, she went to go play tennis. She was in the area where you get ready, and there's these two women talking, and they were saying how they can't bring their kids to Pride baseball games, they can't even go to the mall because they're there, and that God hates gays. And so she's hearing all this, and so she approaches them because we're just too old to like put up with all this, right? You just have to say something. Because if you don't say something, then it means you agree with them, right? So she told them that she is a lesbian. She's been married 18 years to her wife. They have 3 children. And I just don't agree with what you're saying. They said, well, it's my First Amendment right, and you can just leave. I mean, you just don't have to be an asshole either. Do you know what I'm saying? Sorry, don't be all sorry, Anyways, it would mean so much as a non-LGBTQ member for you to say something. It carries so much more weight for you to say something because you have no skin in the game. I'm obviously going to say something because you're coming at me, right? But if you do it, that means so people hear that so differently because you don't have anything to gain from it. And sadly, there was a woman sitting there that watched it all and did nothing. And then when her other friends came up and asked how she was doing this and that, she said, oh, they were just going back and forth. So the deal is it's like, people are like, just get over it. And I'm sorry, this is my life. It's a threat to my life, my livelihood, how I live. I can't just sit and not say something. And I beg you, if you have an opportunity, I understand it's a risk. Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
But please, please say something so that people know that you don't agree with them. Because if you don't, they think you do. And sadly, now my friend doesn't feel safe going to the tennis club because of that experience. And I have some things to share with you. She sent me a text on when you have this fear over and over again, when it's constantly on you, all the things it does in your body, like, so I'll share with that in a minute, but that's on my phone, so I want to get through this first. Use preferred names. It's not that hard, you guys. My legal name is Patricia, but guess what? I go by Trisha. You just did it. You just called me by a name different than what my name is. So if I want to be called John, but I look like Jane, call me John. And just ask, how would you like to be referred? It's not that hard. It's gotten to be so complicated. And like the they thing, people have a problem with this they pronoun thing, right? Okay, I struggled at first because of I felt noun verb agreement seemed so weird. But it's like the Patricia Trisha thing. If you don't want she or him, or her, sorry, she, you know what I'm saying. Anyways, the they thing, it's just not that hard. And if you want to think of the person, if they want to be called they, if you want to think of that person as having multiple experiences within one body to help you get more comfortable with what a they is, then do that. That might be how, because sometimes what that means when somebody says they would like to be called they, is sometimes they experience themselves more as a male, sometimes they experience themselves more as a female, and that's just how they want to be called. It's not that hard.
What about, I've seen people sign an email, them, she, s/he, something.
Yeah, I think that means call me whatever you want to, except that A word I used earlier. Again, my perspective on that is you're not doing anything to me. It doesn't bother me if you want me to call you Joe versus Jane, or Janet, sorry. Funny how that worked out. But I don't, just let me know how you want to be referred, I'll call you that. It doesn't bother me. It's no skin off your nose. It's not your experience. Why, we don't have to judge somebody else's experience.
So am I supposed to call the person who sent me an email, hi them, like to respond to that? I mean,
I would just, you know what I would
because they didn't
do?
put their name on it.
No, what I would do is just say, hi.
Yeah.
Hi, glad to hear from you.
Yeah.
Something like that. You don't necessarily have to do that, right? It's really an interesting, at work we used to do this thing with folks, an exercise where we said, have a conversation with a friend, but like replace all the pronouns. Like instead of it being like I went out with my husband, make it I went out with my wife. And just or how to make it even just agnostic in a way as well, right? But it's a little bit of an exercise to rethink about how we talk about stuff, because it's just we're so ingrained in things, it's just so natural, and I'm just asking you to be a bit more uncomfortable and to question what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, right? I mean, don't get me started on gender stuff. It drives me absolutely crazy when you see two babies and they're playing and somebody goes, oh, look how cute, he's flirting with her. And I'm like, they're babies. And you would never have somebody, I really want to do this one day where they're two boys and they're babies and say to the parents, oh, look, they're flirting. I mean, let's normalize that. Why can't they be flirting just as much as the others are flirting? It's a ridiculous concept to me. Like I said, don't get me started. Okay. I guess you already did it. Okay. Educate yourself on the issues. Don't just take it from me. There's plenty of information out there. There's a lot of disinformation as well, so you do have to do your research, but I would not just take the word of just any one source, not now. Personally, I don't think we should call anything news. I think it's called entertainment. I think Ted Turner did us a disservice by making news 24/7, and when that happened, it became entertainment, not news. Anyways, those are just points on that. There's such a thing called straight washing. That's basically where history has wiped out anything related to LGBTQ people. So like, for example, did you know Sally Ride, the first woman astronaut, was a lesbian? You didn't see that when she started out, did you? But now it's known. So there's a lot that's gone on. The other thing that's super interesting is because Texas is so large, Texas produces the history books. And so how Texas goes is how the nation goes. And there's a lot of work going on right now on school boards and on how school books are written about how history should be stated. I mean, there are people that don't believe the Holocaust happened. Do y'all remember the McCarthy's pig scare? Yeah, that was a whole thing too. McCarthy, yeah. When he was like, we gotta go get all the gays, because they're gonna give away all their secrets, because, you know, they have a secret that we could use against them. So that was a good time. I'm basically asking you to take some action. Maybe donate your time. Here we go. Maybe donate your time. I volunteer with the Human Rights Campaign. As she mentioned, you guys got a lot of free time. Maybe you could do something like that, or any organization that is of interest to you. I'm happy to help you join HRC if you'd like. And I could talk about that forever, but I won't. But I do volunteer on that committee as a steering committee member. I also give them my money because it's important to me, so I do that as well. So there's plenty of places, organizations that you can do this with, and I'm happy to share those with you. It is an election year. I don't know if y'all noticed that. I bet you probably haven't seen anything about an election. But please vote for pro-LGBTQ candidates. That is my biggest wish. It could literally be the difference in life and death for some people. And I know that sounds super dramatic, but it is definitely as bleak as that. If you're not gonna get health care, if the women at that club that feel so empowered to just spew whatever they want to in public because they have every right to do it. It's a scary place in time for me. But I will say this part. I also ask that you celebrate LGBTQ lives in the community. There's a big pride parade this weekend. You could always do that. There's an excellent documentary on Netflix called Outstanding. It's a comedy revolution. And it's basically about all the LGBTQ comedians over the years and what their lives were like and how they had to hide, and then as they came out, things that happened. It's an excellent movie on Netflix. So
Is that 2 words or one?
just put in Outstanding, you'll find it. Yeah. Yeah, it might not come up on your My feed just yet, but if you start doing it, you might get some other good stuff. But yeah, if you could just get some information, learn a little bit about that, what's going on in the community, how you can get involved, greatly appreciated. Let's see, let me share what I wanted to share. Sorry, I have to go to my phone on this. And I'm not gonna read all of it, cause it's a lot.
We did just show the movie Beginners.
Oh, very
We
nice.
showed it in here,
Oh, great.
but we had a very small audience.
Yeah,
It was a very good movie.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that problem and that process. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you about that experience and kind of why it means so much to us. So when a person is under social threat, several processes occur inside the brain. And here's a detailed look at what happens. I'm not gonna read all of it, the detail of it, but it activates your amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions. Your hypothalamus gets activated as well. That releases stress hormones. Your prefrontal cortex is engaged. That's responsible for higher order functions such as decision making. And under social threat, this part of the brain struggles to regulate emotions and impulses effectively. The release of neurotransmitters. So stress neurotransmitters are released. and this can lead to physical symptoms like increased heart rate and heightened alertness. Social pain in anterior cingulate cortex, ACC. It's the experience of social pain. This region is also active during physical pain, highlighting how the brain processes social rejection or threats similar to physical pain. The hippocampus involvement. The hippocampus is crucial for memory formation, and it is affected by the elevated cortisol levels, and chronic social stress can impair, affecting your memory and your learning. Behavioral and emotional changes. The combined effects of these processes can lead to behavioral change such as increased aggression. You didn't notice that in me, did you? No. Okay. Increased aggression, withdrawal, heightened violence, vigilance, sorry. What was I thinking? Emotionally, individuals may experience heightened anxiety, fear, and a sense of vulnerability. And these are all responses or part of the brain's mechanism to protect the individual from harm, whether physical or social, but they can have negative consequences if the social threat is prolonged or perceived frequently. And I'm here to tell you it feels very prolonged and it feels very frequent. That's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Please don't be shy. Yes. Yeah, let's start over here. It's better be a softball now, come on. You promised.
Now, with all of that just said, do
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have any statistics about what the suicide rate is within the community?
Oh, yeah.
Is it a lot?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
it's
I
a
don't
lot
know what it
more.
is. Percentage-wise, it is definitely higher
Yeah.
in the LGBT community than it is in any other demographic. It is definitely higher, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I did know the answer to that one. That was good. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not sure what's been decided legally about this, but in the transgender movement, if kids go through puberty, obviously that causes different changes in their bones with males and females.
Mhm.
And so one of the arguments people have made, if you do your change later in life when you've had all the characteristics of a strong male versus a woman, then you may not be able to compete fairly with women who don't have those strong bones and strong muscles because of the testosterone. Do you have any insight? Can you help me see through that better?
Are you talking about men transitioning to women? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. And
Okay.
at a later age when they've gone through their pubertal changes, so they
Right.
have all the benefits of a man.
So what I'll say to you, I can respond to this, yeah. So that is the argument, is that these men are competing in women's sports, okay? So I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't have all the information, but I will tell you from my knowledge of what I know about it, okay? And that is that they do lose testosterone. When they go on the drugs to change, they do lose their testosterone levels, their steroid levels, right? They're not gonna shrink. If they're 6 foot tall, they're not gonna become 5 foot all of a sudden because of that, okay?
Sure.
But I'm gonna tell you this, Michael Phelps, he won all those swimming awards because his arm span was wider than any other person, okay? Well, that's an advantage. Why is he allowed to compete in men's sports? Okay, so there is a degradation of what they are able to do. Do they still have potentially a height advantage? Do they potentially have some like muscle mass potential? Maybe, okay? But that's the example that I give you, is that anybody can have an advantage over anyone else. That's what makes somebody better. Michael Jordan could lead from the free throw line and dunk a ball. Not everybody can do that. Well, they kind of can now. But I'm just saying, back in the day, not everybody can do that. So there are all sorts of physical advantage that people have that make them the winners that they are. Who's screaming about Katie Ledecky winning every single freaking swimming thing she's ever won? She's a woman, she's not on steroids. Why are we going after her? So I don't know, that's my point on that. And and I played sports, and do I have any problem with playing against a trans woman? I do not. That is like my personal view, that's how I am. I don't feel like it gives them any other advantage than what they already had coming in. The NWSL, the Women's National Soccer League, they have trans women playing in their sport. The basketball has some trans folks playing, women's WNBA, they have some trans folks in their league. It's not killing it, it's not hurting anyone, it's not doing anything. There's only a handful of people that this actually applies to, that are doing all the talking and making all the noise, and the news of course attaches onto that and does anything that they can to drive this narrative that they're trying to drive. That's my personal opinion. Thank you for asking about that, appreciate it.
Just a terminology question.
Sure.
A trans man, is that formerly a woman who became a man?
That is correct.
Okay.
So trans is like cross, right?
I understand, but I was.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to give some help, right? So a trans man
Man.
is a person was born technically as a woman and now identifies as a
Okay,
man.
not the other way around.
That would be a trans woman,
Okay.
right? So you're crossed to a woman.
Okay.
That's the language I'm trying to help you with. Yes, sir.
The best definition that I saw in one of the magazines that I've read, and this was Scientific American, so it's reasonably legit and reasonably objective, is that sex is a biological classification. In other words, if your cells have X and Y chromosomes, you're a man. If your cells has 2X chromosomes, you're a female. That's sex, that's a biological classification. Gender is a social classification, and that can be any number of things.
Agreed, totally agree with you. Thank you for offering that. Yeah, totally agree with you. Yes.
I had a friend years ago who.
Oh, you had a friend, did you, Dick? Okay. Okay, I like how this story's starting. Let's hear it.
A gay friend.
Ah, even better. I like them better. Yes, sir.
A really good friend.
Oh! Were they best friends?
His comment was, no one would ever choose this life. It is a horrible, his comment.
Yeah.
It's a horrible life. No one would ever choose to be gay. So that's.
And that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much better it is. So.
Yeah. My personal experience says it is not a choice. It is everything in my being about who I am. Again, it goes back to, when did you decide you were straight? Why don't you guys be gay? You haven't tried it. Why don't you give it a try? You know? But yeah, it is my experience. It is difficult. Having kids in the late 90s, that was in Texas. That was like mind blowing. We had to go to we had to get a psychological exam to say that we're okay to be parents. Now I got to tell you, I think that everybody could maybe use that. I don't think everybody should be parents, but do they have to go through an exam? No, but we did. We passed, obviously. But when we went to go to our appointments, we were not supposed to hold hands, show any sort of affection whatsoever, to not make anyone else uncomfortable in the waiting room. Oh, excuse me. I don't want to see you guys kissing either, thank you very much. But everything we had to do between, I mean, we wanted those kids so badly. It took us 6 different tries. And finally, on the last one, we'd run out of money, that was it. And we got pregnant that time, so that was great. And then on the second time, we got pregnant the first time, so it kind of averaged out. But that was also at a time when insurance didn't cover any of that, and now insurance will cover those things, so I was born a little early. But I've been in therapy, and one therapist would quiz me. I'm like, this is my hour. And she was so impressed that I was gay, and then, when I was, and everything that I did, and having children and everything, that she would just question me during my hour about, how did you handle this, and what did you do with this? And I was like, this is my time to talk to you. But she was just dumbfounded by the fact that, that's what I did. But why can't I live an authentic life? I mean, who are you to tell me who I am? I'm not telling you who you are. You're not hurting me. I'm not hurting you. Yeah.
I think what
Yes.
She went from, man to woman,
Mhm.
and she's still a judge in Harris County, right?
I think she actually got promotion, but I don't recall, but yes, yeah. Phyllis is
Yeah.
great for the community. There's a lot of really good LGBTQ organizations that are trying to do the work, that are trying to bridge these gaps that are being created that don't, in my opinion, don't need to be created. Please just let us live, just let us thrive in what we're trying to do. I can only hope that future generations make things better, but you guys probably said that too. And here we are. I mean, there's always, for as many people you create like this, there's these created as well. So there's always this constant struggle. But I do have faith that my kids' generation is gonna make a difference. It's gonna help. Like things like nobody cared that they had lesbian parents when they were in high school. Actually, we were the bomb. We got asked to be the chaperones for prom night.
Wow.
So I'm just here to tell you, we were pretty cool. What a little funny story about that was, okay, this is super nerdy. My eldest is the nerdy one, and they all had written contracts about how everybody was gonna act for prom night at the beach house and stuff. And everybody had to sign it, and they weren't allowed alcohol and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, that I will be a chaperone for. So we all piled, like 30 people of us down at the beach house. And we start playing this game. It's like, I think it's called Parents versus Kids or something like this. So anyways, it was Julie and me playing against all these kids. And they're all like advanced, like class kids, right? That's why they did the contract. But anyway, so this one boy was sitting across from Julie. Oh my God, he was flirting so badly with her. It was so awful. And it was so apparent, it was so irritating that this one of his friends said, dude, I have more chance with her than you do. Leave her alone. But anyways, like I said, my kids experience, they know they're loved. We had to do so much to get them. They know they're loved. They know that people are people. I love listening to how they talk about things. I love how their friends treat them and us. It's just, like I said, I just would like to breathe. I'd like to know my kids are gonna be okay in the future as well. Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to know how you respond to people that throw religion at you.
I didn't hear the question.
How do I respond to people that throw religion at me? So I think I come across more so that people don't actually do that to me. But I will say, like the folks that come to the door. I mean, you guys, I have a pro-women big old thing on my door, and they still knock on my door and want to talk to me. I'm like, what are we doing? So that's why I'm like, let's open it, let's have a conversation. So I just am honest and clear about it, but I'm not gonna fight them over it because I'm not gonna change their mind. That's
No,
gotta
they
be
do.
up to them.
Mhm.
Excuse me?
Nor they you.
Correct. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not gonna all of a sudden just believe that God didn't make me like this. I know good and well God did.
Yeah.
So why you're telling me what my experience, I don't know. That would probably be my response, but I tend to not engage in that. And I will just say, we're gonna have to agree to disagree. I mean, I had to do that a lot at work. I mean, I worked at ExxonMobil, you guys. So it's a pretty conservative company, but I did not feel, but again, I created the environment that I wanted, right? I wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. But for the people I was, they wanted to work with me every time, all the time. And nobody cared. They just cared about who I was as a person. And I think that is what counts. What's your
And that's the
integrity?
most important part
Yes,
of
ma'am.
the whole thing is that you are a person and everyone is a person.
Yes, right.
And
Thank you
you've
so much.
just given us a wonderful